We are welcoming Josh and Marilyn. Marilyn, so great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to have you both here today. We're going to be talking with these wonderful folks about revolutionizing e-commerce experiences. So first, Marilyn, I'd love to kick it to you. Will you introduce yourself? Tell us about A/B Tasty and what you do there.
Sure. So my name is Marilyn Montoya. I'm the VP of Marketing at A/B Tasty. A/B Tasty is a customer experience optimization and personalization solution. We help product marketing and tech teams to implement testing and personalization across different devices and across websites. That's what we do.
Thank you. That was perfect. Josh, love to hear from you.
Yeah, my name is Josh Averbeck. I am the Director of Digital Marketing and E-commerce at Forever Companies. We are a direct-to-consumer e-commerce jewelry company. We have two brands that sell lab diamonds and diamond simulant jewelry. So we try to disrupt the jewelry industry by selling better, more ethical, more eco-friendly jewelry products.
Love it. Okay, Josh, let's get down to business. Do I get a promo code for getting to have this conversation with you today?
I tell you what, reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can give the friends and family discount to anyone in this session. So happy to do that.
Wow, that's amazing.
This is amazing.
Fantastic.
We have plenty of great jewelry options.
That's fantastic. All right. Well, in all seriousness, let's talk about where Forever Companies has been and what you're doing today to compete in the industry of bling. I know you have some pretty significant competition, so talk to us about that.
Yeah, so Forever Companies has been around for 17 years. We established ourselves as basically a less affordable, a less expensive alternative to mined diamond jewelry. Everyone's heard of Blood Diamond, if not seen the movie. It's a very, very, very rough industry, and everything is super expensive, right? So we thought there has to be a better way to do this. Starting out, we had our simulant brand, which is basically they look like diamonds, but they aren't actually diamonds. And now we are big into the lab diamond industry, which are real diamonds just made in the lab. What we're up against, though, are giant companies that have enough money to run Super Bowl spots. And now there's also another competitive set of younger companies that are also selling lab diamonds, who are, IPOing and getting tons of money that they can invest as well. So we have to find competitive advantages. We're a small company. We've bootstrapped all of our growth and all of our existence to this point. And one of the competitive advantages that we saw in our industry was through data, through building a foundation of data, a base of customer and user data that we can use to personalize our site, optimize our site, personalize our communications, optimize our communications. We really have gone headlong into that initiative and have partnered with A/B Tasty for our optimization and personalization initiatives as well. And we've just said like, hey, this has to be how we differentiate ourselves from our competitive set, because it's much less expensive than a Super Bowl ad, obviously.
Love that. Data activation is the levels the playing field. Marilyn, let's talk about the success that you've seen with Forever Companies and other retailers from your point of view. What are companies from A/B Tasty's vantage point doing to revolutionize e-commerce right now?
Well, I think when you think about, customers today and the speed at which, change happens and the speed at which browsing and the user journey, being able to adapt quickly, to be able to change things, to be able to provide a message that is right at the right moment, that's a challenging thing. And so when you have e-commerce websites, whether you're a medium-sized company or a large company, it's not an easy thing to do without the proper tooling. And so where we come in is really helping marketers, digital teams, e-commerce teams say, okay, I want to learn more about my customer. I want to learn more about my visitors, and help them run tests and personalizations in a very easy way that's not going to take like an 18-month roadmap to be able to implement, and be able to start learning more and gathering that data and being able to insert that data back into your knowledge base, which is where Telium comes in. And so it's a balance between being able to gather the data, learn about your customers, understand what they want, understand what they prefer, and building that knowledge base as you go on. And over time, you end up understanding your customers a lot better. You're able to understand your high value customers, you understand one-time shoppers, you understand all types of things about your market, about your market, your market share, I guess, if you want to talk about your audiences that are visiting your website, and how to split up the treatment of those different audiences. So I think to be successful in e-commerce today, you need to have that agility, and you need to be data oriented, of course, which is a no-brainer, but putting it into practice is the challenge. And so you need that tooling, you need that kind of support from the technical side to be able to do these things on a regular basis.
And I just love the philosophy or the foundation that AB Tasty is built on with testing and building out that infrastructure to help companies do that well and at scale. And you really live, I think a few steps ahead of a lot of us with, AI and ML are your bread and butter, your day-to-day. Can you talk to us a little bit more about some of the examples of ways that retailers have leveraged ML to take their business forward to grow?
Well, there are a lot of different ways. So it depends on which type of visitor we're talking about. And I know privacy comes into this conversation as well, right? So those users that those visitors that versus those that you don't know. With Telium, for example, one great thing is that when we run tests on audiences coming from Telium, that data, those insights are being sent back to Telium. And so with Telium, there is learning going on there. So you're being able to predict based on these behaviors and the outcomes of these tests. So that's one way that we drive ML. The other way that we do it is not necessarily through audiences that we know or that are maybe not yet registered on Telium's audience set. We have things like such as content interest and engagement level, and these are AI and machine learning based insights that are based on anonymous data. So it's not using any PII, and it's a way to address the long tail. So it's like, you don't know these customers yet. You don't know who they are. Maybe you do know, but they're not logged in. In any case, there's some kind of behavior going on the website, and either they're very engaged customers or they're interested in a specific thing, like let's say engagement rings, or like some kind of a pair of earrings, or earrings are looking for earrings. You'll be able to identify those audiences that are interested in those things and be able to create a specific action. So whether it's a banner, whether it's a message, whether it's putting forward some kind of promotion that's tied to that specific product line, you'll be able to do that without necessarily knowing who they are, which is kind of the challenge today. So there are different ways that we play into the machine learning and the AI. So it's either with Telium, or it's also just on AB Tasty side with some of those anonymous audiences.
Josh, any examples?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things that when you talk about AI or ML, like there are endless applications, some of them a little bit harder to stand up than others. One of the applications that we have developed in the AI realm is a cross-brand promotion algorithm, right? So it looks at user behavior, it looks at our our database within Telium to say, is this person searching for something that is a little bit less expensive, maybe on the diamond simulant side, or are they looking for something that's a little bit more expensive on the lab diamond side? And with that, we can cross-promote the brands. We've seen great success with that. By just promoting it via email, we've seen $800,000 of incremental revenue in the last year. But if that is not something that your team has the technical knowledge to know how to do, there's plenty of other, I guess, for lack of a better term, more conditional algorithms that you can write. And that's as simple as like, okay, maybe I sell, in our instance, we sell engagement rings, wedding bands, earrings, necklaces, pendants, all that stuff. And we know through Telium, if someone is, if they've already bought an engagement ring, the odds of them needing another engagement ring are hopefully zero, right? But either way, they're very, very low. in that case, we want to make sure that we are not promoting engagement rings to them anymore. And I think, something as simple as that, personalizing a homepage or personalizing a banner to promote a product other than the product that you know that they own, is applicable in any retail industry.
I love the way that your products, Josh, follow people along these major milestone moments in their lives, right? High lifetime value for your customers, getting the single view and creating the highest lifetime value for them is the goal. Can you talk about some of those really interesting insights that you have about customers based on, just kind of having this picture into where they are in their lives?
Yeah, one of the very interesting pieces of information that we have is when someone buys an engagement ring, they are most likely to buy a wedding band within 30 to 60 days after the engagement ring purchase. Wow. We also know that when someone buys an engagement ring, they are significantly more likely to buy lower dollar value jewelry items at some point thereafter. Versus if someone makes their first purchase with us of a piece of jewelry that is, call it a couple $100s, they are very unlikely to purchase an engagement ring. So you can, probably assume that they already have one of those or they aren't in the market for it. I think one of the products that I personally love the most, because I'm a bit of a nerd about Telium, is the event database and the audience database. We spend so much time querying that database, but we've discovered things like people who add to cart are significantly more likely to purchase than someone who has signed up for our email entry, which is a giveaway that we do on our brands. Which, without Telium, we never would have known that, but knowing that, that trickles throughout the entirety of our marketing program. So now instead of optimizing towards email capture with, call it our PPC ads, we're optimizing towards add to carts and really saying like, okay, how can we really entice people to add to cart and push them down the funnel? And when we're focusing on what sort of traffic we want to buy, we really feed that signal back to our advertising platforms as well. And it really starts to become this symbiotic, holistic relationship, not only view of your customers, but view of your entire digital marketing initiative.
I love that. Marilyn, I would love to know from where you sit, what are some of the more memorable tests that have been run at A/B Tasty? From an A/B testing perspective, some of the nuances are so minute.
It's incredible.
What really sticks out in your mind? Give us some examples.
Oh, wow, there's so many. One test that for me was really interesting. Now, this is more relevant to maybe fashion websites and sell clothing. But for example, there was a company that did this very interesting test where they tested, like, for example, like a black dress or a white dress with different backgrounds. And so they discovered that when you have more contrast, so more contrast between, or more like opposing colors in a background with a specific dress, that it had better results. This is an example. Another one is, it's just very simple things like on mobile, when you are looking at a product, having the little icons at the bottom where you can scroll through the images is distracting because the person wants to just focus on the picture. This was a result of a test where they were looking at the layout of the mobile shopping page. And so with the version that had the little squares at the bottom with the scrolling images of the clothing, they had less add to cart because the add to cart button was just less visible because it was under those little photos. And so the user was clicking more on the photos and clicking less on the add to cart button. So there's so many tests like this where you think about, wow, it's amazing. Just one little change can have this tremendous impact on the user behavior. And I think what's also very interesting that we've seen is that a lot of the times you will have tests that are positive, meaning that, there was a version A and a version B, and there was a version B or A that worked better. And then these tests will work better until they don't work anymore. Until the performance, there is no difference. And what's interesting is that it's like people's behavior changes and evolves. So if you're testing that on a specific audience, and that audience changes, or it's the same audience, their behavior either changes or the audience changes. And it's very interesting to see how you can have a result, but it's not necessarily consistent throughout time. You have to consistently come back to those original ideas and see, is this still working, or has the behavior changed? So there's a lot of that going on as well. So it really re-emphasizes the need to constantly test, because you might have that positive result for now, but it doesn't mean that it'll always be. So like this specific banner or this specific call to action works really well right now, but in a few months, it might not work well anymore, or it might not have that significant impact that it once did. So it's almost, it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but I think it's kind of it really speaks to human behavior and how novelty is a big thing. So once you have a specific experience on a website, but you keep having that same experience, well, you kind of, you want something new, you want to see something new. So it's kind of speaking to that and the novelty that users today expect when they visit websites, and the need, therefore, to constantly change, to constantly bring something new.
We actually saw that play out on our end. We were running a continue shopping block on our homepage that would show people products that they viewed but hadn't purchased. And when we first launched the test, we were seeing significant increases in revenue per visitor as a result of having that. But over the course of time, once we got to about 2 months of running the test, the improvement was diminished drastically, and it went from being a 40% improvement by having the continue shopping block down to 5%. So now we're trying to ideate, like, okay, what can we do to keep this fresh? What can we do to make sure that it doesn't get stale for users who are coming back to our site on a regular basis?
Exactly. Stale is the right word.
Yes.
That's what I love about marketing. That's what I love about what we do, right? It's just this study of humanity and how people behave, and then how we can keep them where they are to give them what they need and want. And it's fascinating, and it's always changing. So it's always relevant. So this is just a fascinating conversation for me. I love it. Marilyn, let's stick with you. What's coming next? What is the team psyched about? You're way out there. What's even beyond that?
So, earlier when we were talking about, A/B Tasty and what solutions we have. So, A/B Tasty was started about 10 years ago, focusing almost exclusively on A/B testing. We still do that today. That's the core of what we do. But what we've done today is kind of extend that and see, okay, well, A/B testing is not just on an image or just on a button, right? There's so much more today when you talk about optimization. It's everything. It's load times. It's menus. It's order of pages of the sequences. It's so much. And beyond just, testing what's visible, there's also testing what's not visible, like algorithms and recommendation engines and all those things. And what that means is that today, some of that experimentation is now spilling over into more technical teams. So you're having, product teams incorporating testing into the way that they build websites, or the way that they're updating, the back office of your e-commerce website. So today we have two solutions. We have our client-side solution and our server-side solution. So what we're seeing now is companies coming to us to empower the e-commerce teams on initiatives and experimentation roadmaps and personalization roadmaps that are more what we call ephemeral, meaning that they're addressing, like seasonality, and they're launching campaigns, and they're kind of working on a really in a very agile way, and they're using it to brainstorm and experiment and gather insights. And then we have the product teams and the tech teams that are also joining the conversation, saying, okay, we have long-term roadmaps on major changes that we want to do on the website. They're more technical, they require coding. We can't do them on a layer of JavaScript, right? We need to start hard coding these things into the back office, but we want to test them. And so, product teams today, they work on minimal viable products, and they need to know whether, if they're designing something, is it going to affect the bottom line? Because then there's no point in designing this entire feature or changing an entire, the way an algorithm works, or, doing all these things if at the end result is not going to have impact. So now we're seeing companies having more of a like the 360 approach, where it's, mutualized experimentation roadmaps, where you have e-commerce teams working on a specific scope, product and tech teams working on a different scope, collaborating, but both of them really using experimentation to drive the way things are built. And so either they're being built and designed a certain way to give customers what they expect, right, in a short-term way, or working on a more long-term performance and improvement. So things such as like pricing experiments, or being able to change and modify thousands of product pages at once. These things that are code heavy. You need very specific tooling and teams to be able to do that. So we're trying to kind of expand that culture of experimentation beyond just the immediate e-commerce team, but also into these more technical teams.
Wow, so that's awesome. Greatness happening there. That's very cool. Josh, what about you? What's coming next for Forever Companies? What's happening in the world of fine jewelry?
Yeah, so we've spent the better part of the last 2 years doing a lot, or 3 years doing a lot of data collection. And we've just recently launched on-site personalization with the help of A/B Tasty. So, I don't want to commit too heavily to a roadmap, because one test can change your roadmap entirely. That being said, data actioning at the high level is the roadmap. It is all about getting personalized and really differentiating ourselves from our competitors. There's not a lot of jewelry companies that do personalization. So we really know that can be a competitive advantage. And then within that, we really want to leverage our existing customer base for repeat purchases. And we think that, between Telium, email marketing, social advertising, and A/B Tasty for on-site personalization, we can make some really big steps in that direction. So it's very exciting, but I'm not committing to anything, because we're going to test everything, right?
Stay nimble. Love it.
Yep.
We are getting some questions in from the audience that I'd love to tee up for you. Josh, buying jewelry can be an emotionally charged experience. So how can data and experimentation play a larger role in that?
So great question. And we're discovering this ourselves, right? So one thing that we know in the jewelry industry is that buying jewelry, particularly engagement rings, is not a single person's decision, right? If you think about that shopping process, there are two people shopping. And if we're speaking in generalities, one partner will generally shop, find styles, find what they like, and they would be the receiving partner. And the other partner will go and purchase, right? Makes attribution absolutely impossible. So what we're moving towards and experimenting towards right now is, how can we do householding? How can we, tie together one user with another user to get this holistic picture of what the couple has purchased? We think that could be incredibly powerful, especially if you're talking about not wasting ad dollars and not advertising products that they have already purchased. So, there would be no way to do that without a tool like Telium. So we're so incredibly, happy to have that in our repertoire, because it really allows us to move to this next level of data acquisition and analysis.
Well, we love hearing that. We love helping our customers do what they do best for their customers. So that's an incredible story. Okay, the next question that's come in, what are some of the quickest paths to ROI with a CDP or AI for retailers? So I don't know who wants to take that one. I think you both probably have something to contribute.
Okay, well, I have something that's tied to what you were saying earlier, and I think it may help answer this question. So, because of that really nice relationship with Telium and then A/B Tasty and then the e-commerce website, and what's very specific to jewelry is that it does have has a very specific life cycle, right?
Mhm.
And so what's great is that you have the information about those people who have purchased, for example, an engagement ring. And you would be able to, for example, so you have a lifetime value of that customer, I guess. And correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. The people who purchase an engagement ring, are those on your higher end of LTV? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
so it would make sense. So these are highly valuable customers, and so you can know that that's your segment within Telium, and then activate on email and website when they visit the website. Do a cross sell, right? Because like they bought the engagement ring. What is another product that they're likely to buy because of their behavior, because of their profile, because of information that you know about them? And then use the website to say, oh, hey, you might like this other thing, and be very, very intentional about what you are proposing with messaging. That they've just bought an engagement ring, so you can put that in context in the message that you're putting on that website. So I think that's the really nice advantage of having, Telium, understanding your lifetime value, understanding, your customer journey, and then being able to, act on that. And going back to the question, I think, I've spoken with a lot of marketers, and they always tell me the same thing. They're strapped for time. They have, revenue objectives. You focus on your high value customers, and
Yep.
so the best way to drive growth and revenue and ROI is identify your high value customers, and then focus on activating them, right? Understand what they want, understand what they're looking for, and be able to act on that across channels. So on the website. Yeah.
And I think the benefit of Telium is really what you said there, across channel, right? Telium makes it super easy for a marketer to activate these segments on various advertising platforms, right? Whether you're talking about using the conversion API in Facebook, or creating a Google customer match audience, or sending the data to AB Tasty or to your website. You can, as a marketer, you don't have to rely on your dev team to create dynamically populated, automatically updated lists. And that is your quickest path to API, is definitely, or I'm sorry, to ROI, is focusing on your existing customer base, your high value customers, and really just promoting what would be relevant to them, and test out what you're promoting to them too. Like, don't just say, okay, this person bought a pair of shoes, now I'm going to try to sell them socks, right? Like, test out the next most appropriate product, and really analyze your data to see what is the next most appropriate product. So that is definitely the fastest way to get ROI, and that's kind of the path that we took when we signed with Telium, and it has been paying off ever since.
It's about testing the personalization as well, right? Because you have to personalize, but there's so many different ways to personalize. It's like the message, it's the weight, it's visual, it's so many things. And so just because we think of one personalization doesn't mean it's the best one. So there's always so much learning that goes into it as well.
Yes, exactly.
This conversation is just music to our ears. Absolutely. We love hearing that Telium can create so much value for forever companies and for your audiences. You all are doing amazing work, by the way, and both certainly leaders in your respective spaces. And so we're just absolutely honored to get to have you join us today for DV 2022 for retail. So Josh, Marilyn, thank you both so much for your time, for sharing your best practices on revolutionizing e-commerce experiences. You're both certainly doing that. And this was great just to get to share your best practices with all of us. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.